Each boundary condition must be assigned to a separate mesh boundary. It means that if we have a mesh that consists of only one boundary, we would have to separate certain mesh faces to assign boundary conditions such as inlet, outlet, wall, etc. Let's check how we can do this in SIMFLOW. In this case, we loaded the mesh of the catalytic converter, and it consists of only one boundary. It's basically useless in this form, so we need to separate inlet and outlet faces from the mesh. For this purpose, we should expand the list of options for the default mesh region and choose the auto patch operation. A new panel will appear on the left-hand side in which we can type the split angle. This angle defines when the mesh will be splitted during the auto patch operation. If the angle between two mesh faces on the boundary is larger than the split angle, these mesh faces will be assigned to two different mesh boundaries. It means that if we use the default split angle, the inlet and outlet surfaces should be assigned to separate mesh boundaries, because the contact angle between these surfaces and the inlet and outlet pipes is 90 degrees. If we now click the Patch button, three separate boundaries, Auto 0, Auto 1 and Auto 2 will be created. As expected, inlet and outlet faces are now in separate boundaries, while the third boundary consists of the wall of the catalytic converter. We can rename these boundaries and use them to assign boundary conditions at a later stage. Another possibility to separate certain faces from the mesh is to select some of the faces using a geometry and extract them from the boundary. In order to extract some faces from the wall of the catalytic converter, we need an additional geometry. So we need to go to the geometry panel and create, for example, a box. The box origin is 9, 2 and 5, and the box dimensions are 5, 6 and 10 meters. This box intersects the mesh, and we will use it to extract the mesh faces from the wall of the catalytic converter. We should go to the Mesh panel, expand the list of options for the mesh boundary in the Boundaries tab, and choose the Extract From operation. Next, we should select the box geometry which we want to use to select mesh faces for extraction. If we click Extract and hide the box geometry, we will be able to see that we have just created another boundary on the wall of the catalytic converter. Now, if we select one of the solvers available in SIMFLOW and move to the Boundary Conditions panel, we will be able to assign a boundary condition to this newly created boundary.